Hello everyone, I cannot believe we are already at the end of 2024. Where has the time gone? But the end of the year means the best of the year list. And I'll be straight up with you, going into 2024, I didn't have particularly high expectations. But I've got to say, this was a great year for film. There's a lot I loved this year. Now, before I get into my top 10, there are a couple of things to mention. Firstly, these are movies that came out in the UK in 2024. So there may be one or two picks where you're like, hang on, that came out in 2023. Not in the UK. Secondly, this is my personal list. I call these videos the best movies of, but really they're more my favourites, the films that resonated with me the most. And finally, before I get into the top 10, I have a bunch of honourable mentions. They didn't quite make the list, but they're all films I really liked to loved, so I would like to mention them. Those films are The Iron Claw, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, Hitman, The Fall Guy, Twisters, Wolves, Bad Boys Ride or Die, Piece by Piece, Challengers, and Aggro Drift. So without further ado, let's get into the top 10. At number 10 is a very late entry into this list. It was the final film I wanted to see before doing my top 10, and it just creeped in there. That film is Better Man. This is a biopic of singer Robbie Williams. However, there is one distinguishable factor to this that is different to other biopics, and that is that Robbie Williams is portrayed as a CGI monkey. I've got to say, this creative decision works so well. The CGI is incredible, and I personally feel it connects you to Robbie more. In general, this is one of the most stylistic biopics I've ever seen. This is directed by Michael Gracey, the director of The Greatest Showman. I love The Greatest Showman, and I don't necessarily think Better Man is better than The Greatest Showman, but I do think Michael Gracey brings even more creativity to Better Man. The musical numbers are fantastic, and the film never tries to sanitize Robbie either, which a lot of biopics are guilty of doing. At number 9, I would say this is my most overlooked film of the year. I hear no one talking about this movie, but I love it. Orion and the Dark. This is a Netflix animated movie that is written by Charlie Kaufman. This was on my top 10 most anticipated films of the year video, and going into it, I was excited because of Charlie Kaufman, but because it's an animated movie, I didn't know how much of it would feel like Charlie Kaufman. If you don't know who Charlie Kaufman is, he writes a lot of weird shit, but this absolutely feels like something written by him in the best way. The third act especially is kind of trippy, but the film deals with some very mature themes and it handles them in a very sensitive way. You care about the characters, the animation is beautiful. If you've never seen this movie, I definitely recommend giving it a go. Number 8 is a film I heard a lot of hype going into it, but for some reason I wasn't necessarily overly excited for it. Yeah, this movie's as good as everyone says it is. The Substance. This is a bonkers, balls to the wall movie. This movie has a very clear vision. It knows exactly what it wants to be, and it does not compromise any of it. Both Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley are honestly Oscar worthy. Demi Moore is a more reserved performance, but Margaret Qualley is more energetic, and when these two have to come together, it makes for such an interesting dynamic. As I said, this movie is bonkers, but it's not just that. It's rooted in a satire and a social commentary that really works and is really engaging. And number 7, another one of my most anticipated films of the year, and it did not let me down, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I will say this is a different movie to the 3 previous Planet of the Apes movies, both tonally and in world building, but the world building is one of the best parts of Kingdom. Westball and the filmmakers really made the wise decision to just let you sit with these characters a lot and let you get to know their world. There's certainly action in this movie, and when it goes down, it's really well done. I would honestly call this more a sci-fi drama with action sequences, just because of how focused it is on the characters. I really hope they move forward with more Planet of the Apes movies after this, because I am really intrigued to see where it goes from here. At number 6, this is a movie that had pretty bad marketing, and I was skeptical when I heard the great reviews, but wow did it prove me wrong. Transformers 1. What a good time this movie was. The filmmakers really do a great job at making you care about the friendship between Orion and D16. The film is very funny, the action is amazing, the animation is beautiful, but because of that brilliant character work, it all culminates in a third act that is nothing less than epic. I can honestly say I'm not really a Transformers fan. I love the movie Bumblebee, and I thought Transformers Rise of the Beasts was okay. But generally, I would say I never really cared about Transformers. Transformers 1 made me care, and that is the biggest compliment I can give it. Into the top 5 now, coming in at number 5 is The Holdovers. Cillian Murphy was great in Oppenheimer, don't get me wrong. But I've got to say, I really wanted Paul Giamatti to win that Oscar. He is so good in this movie. So much of The Holdovers feels like a hangout movie. So much of this movie, you're just sitting with these characters, getting to know them. It genuinely feels like a movie that would have come out in the 1970s. There's a real nostalgic quality to it, and it genuinely just felt like a pleasure to spend time with these characters. At number 4 is a film from a filmmaker I very much admire, but this is easily my favourite movie of his, Sean Baker's Honora. I really hope Mikey Madison wins the Oscar for this movie. She is incredible. She genuinely just disappears into her role, and I think Honora is a masterclass in terms of balancing tone. It is both a comedy and a drama. It can be hilarious, but it can break your heart at the same time. And those two things never conflict. They feel natural and in sync with each other. This film is a great watch. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. I really hope it does well at the Oscars. At number 3, this is my surprise movie of the year, The First Omen. When they first announced this movie, I was like, okay, they're clearly just trying to cash in on the Omen franchise name. But I absolutely have to eat my words. This movie is fantastic. Now Tiger 3 is excellent, and the filmmakers understand that the best horror movies are scary because you care about the characters. That's true with The First Omen. The filmmakers put Nell Tiger 3's character at the centre of this movie, and they really focus on the character work with her. So when the scary scenes go down, they're really effective, and this is a masterfully directed horror movie by Arkasha Stevenson. They take some wild swings and it absolutely works. This is one of the best horror movies I've seen in years. I loved it. At number 2, I've got to say, until it got knocked out in November, this was my favourite film of the year for a lot of the year. Alex Garland's Civil War. What I appreciate so much about Civil War is that it so easily could have tried to sway you one way or the other politically, but I love how apolitical it remains. To be honest, I wouldn't even call this movie political. Of course, due to the subject matter, there are political implications, but really, this is a story about journalists and the stories that journalists tell through their work. I thought it was fascinating, it was intense, and the ending is honestly breathtaking. Here we are at number 1. As soon as my first viewing of this movie ended, I knew it was going to be my favourite movie of the year. That is Wicked. John M. Chu provides a masterclass in musical storytelling. He understands the scope and the scale of both Oz and musicals, but he never lets any of that get lost in the absolutely fantastic character work. I really cared for Elphaba and Glinda throughout this movie. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are absolute dynamite. Their chemistry is impeccable. I've been listening to the soundtrack on repeat for weeks now. I adore the movie versions of these songs. Quite frankly, no film this year has had the effect Wicked had on me. I can honestly say I don't think I will ever forget how I felt watching this movie for the first time. Because of that, Wicked is my favourite movie of 2024. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video and watching all of my videos this year. I've really enjoyed doing videos this year, and I'm really glad you guys have enjoyed them. Looking forward to a great 2025. Blu-ray Billy, logging off.